me. I've decided to spend a good portion of the rest of my time on Earth ending lab testing on chimpanzees. Let me be very blunt with you. I want to end all lab testing on chimpanzees, and I'm going to explain why. Let me take us back to where we are. The Islamofascists are dehumanizing the world by killing even their own co-religionists with such brutality and a lack of humanity. Many of us are starting to become less and less human on this planet. And in the midst of fighting an Islamofascist enemy that treats its victims less than human, we must remember and reaffirm our own humanity. We must remember that we have a responsibility to the innocent animals that God has placed on this earth. And because of that, and because of the fact that technology has eliminated the need for lab testing on chimpanzees, I am going to work to end such cruel and inhumane testing immediately. Now, I know there are others who have been working on this for ages, but I'm going to join them. You see, chimpanzees have a similar range of emotions to humans. Chimps feel themselves being strapped to a gurney. They feel when they're being tortured in a lab. They feel when they're being given diseases. They can also see their mates and friends being tortured in front of their eyes in laboratories, because all you got to do is go into a lab and hear them screaming out as their mate or their family or their friends are strapped to a gurney and tortured by these sick doctors. I say end all animal experiments on chimpanzees now. Now you say, Savage, where is this coming from all of a sudden? Is this something new? How come you're all of a sudden concerned about chimpanzees? In a way it's new and in a way it's old. I began as a graduate student a long time ago. In fact, I don't know if I told you the story, but I lost a fellowship in 1968 in a laboratory because I wouldn't kill lab animals. Let me take you back there for a minute. In case you have the wrong impression of me, you may as well get the right impression of me. I think it was 1968, and I went back to graduate school as somewhat of an adult at the time, and I was working in a pharmacology laboratory. I won't say which university, which I really detested doing, because I heard my ancestors speaking to me and saying, you've come this far in life to clean rat feces. But what I couldn't do was, I didn't want to kill even the rats. I wouldn't kill them. There was a midget that worked in the laboratory to the rats as she broke their necks and really pithed their spines. So here was what happened. I had no money. I was a young graduate student, and I had a $300 a month stipend. $300 a month was enough to live on in those days. I had nothing else. I just arrived in this faraway place with my then girlfriend, and the lab guy who brought me out there said, here's the ultimatum that you have. You either kill the animals like you're supposed to, or I'm pulling your fellowship. I said, well, go ahead and pull my fellowship because I'm not killing animals. And I left the lab, and I had to wander around, and I wound up in a botany laboratory, and that's when I moved into botany because I didn't think I'd have to kill animals. But the point I'm making is we have an obligation to be good shepherds to our animal friends. And chimpanzees, of all the animals, of all of them, they are so close to us genetically. There's only a few enzymatic differences between us and chimps. I know many of you find it offensive because you don't even understand what I'm saying to you, but the truth is they're very closely related to us. The important thing to know is that they have a full range of emotions. Their bad luck, here's their bad luck. The bad luck for chimps is that they get the same disease as we do. And because they get the same disease as we do, the chimps are often substituted for humans in laboratories. So they're tortured by these sadistic so-called scientists for medical research. Now, I'm not against medical research, but I understand that with the advent of the computer and computer modeling, there's no need to do this to chimpanzees at all. And if you go into a laboratory, as I say, and you see what they do to chimpanzees, I think most of you would agree with me, your stomach would turn. When they take out one of the family members or friends of a chimpanzee, you say they don't know what's going on? Listen to them scream in pain and go crazy as they watch their brother, their uncle, their cousin, or their girlfriend being strapped to a gurney by a sadist in a white coat. And as you hear their friend struggling to free themselves from the drugs and the chains to the gurney, believe me, they have the same range of emotions. It would be like experimenting on a human being by Dr. Mengele, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I wouldn't apply the same to a rat. I wouldn't apply the same to a rabbit. I would apply this concept to a chimpanzee owing to the close similarity between the chimpanzee and the human being. So that's one of the topics I really do want to talk about, which is ending animal testing on chimpanzees. And if you think this is an odd thing for a conservative talk show host to be talking about, you're right, because I'm not a conservative talk show host. I'm an independent. That is correct. I actually walk the walk and I talk the talk. I'll be right back. And the more I have studied this, the more I realize it brings me back to my beginnings in science, where I refused to kill animals. And it really did a lot of good for me, as a matter of fact, by walking out on that bastard's laboratory. By the way, he eventually died of brain cancer. It's a funny thing, which is not to say that everyone who gets brain cancer was torturing animals, but I thought it was quite interesting that this very doctor who threw me out of the lab because I wouldn't kill animals, and he knew I had nowhere to go. I mean, he gave me an ultimatum, either you kill the animals or I'm taking back your fellowship. That's why I'm saying I think that we need to focus today as an American people on what's happening to us as people. The Islamo-fascists are dehumanizing the world. When you see them cutting Daniel Pearl's throat and you hear the blood-curdling cry, of course, that's been buried because you're not supposed to remember who they really are. Or when you hear them making him say, I am a Jew, my mother was a Jew, my father was a Jew, and then they cut his head off. Again, you're not supposed to remember any of that. That's one thing. But we must not let the Islamo-fascists dehumanize us. I didn't say don't fight them. In fact, I would say kill more of them would be better than killing less of them, because to me they're lower than a chimpanzee. How do you like that? They're not even worthy of the name human, people who do things like that. But what we can do is remember that we have a responsibility to protect these innocent creatures that God has placed on this earth along with us. There is no need to experiment and torture these chimpanzees anymore. They can use computer modeling. There are other ways to do this. This is a throwback to the 19th century, and many of the people that I have met in my life in animal research are the most sadistic people on the planet, and they use the animals to work out their sadism. And I know many of you are saying, what's he talking about? This is not conservative. A real man, eats animals and kills them. Well, you know what? Say what you want. I'm telling you what I think. That's all. New York City, WOR. Anna, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Savage, for talking about this. It's a testament to your humanity, and if I ever hear a liberal insult you again, I'm just going to bring this up because you have the courage to discuss this issue. These chimps.
Well, I don't know whether it's a liberal conservative issue. I think it's a human issue, and I think this is something that should not unite all of us. Again, I want to say this again. I want to be very clear. I believe that we as a race are becoming, we as a species are becoming dehumanized by the Islamo-fascists. When we see how they treat their fellow co-religionists even, blowing up marketplaces, killing fellow Muslims, all in the name of some political ideology that they mask in a religious ideology, we cannot let them dehumanize us. And I'm saying the best way to make to save our humanity is to save the animals. How's that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked to people, friends of mine who work in pharmaceutical companies still, and similar to what happens with the Islamo-fascists is the way that you get used to working in this field, and it's a dehumanizing practice,
That's right, exactly. Oh, well, I'm just going to go to work today and take a chimpanzee. I'm going to inject them with a tranquilizer. His family members are going to scream in the cages that he was brought in with as we wheel him out in a gurney and he's helpless. And then when we poke him and prod him and, let's say, maybe blind him, take an eye out of him, you can hear the other animals screaming through the wall because they know what's going on. No, this has to end.
Absolutely, and it's one step.
I'll tell you something. We should see more of these videos rather than fewer. That's all. Remember, I told you I walked out of. I want to make it about me, but it is about me. You got to understand, it is about me. People have a history in their life, and very often their history is fraudulently altered for political reasons.
What you're really saying, Michael, is what many of the great Jewish rabbis did in their day to protect society from moving in the direction of the greater sins. They built walls where you knew you were getting in breaking distance of the greater sins. So by being humane to the chimpanzees, what you're really saying is we need to build a wall from sliding into greater inhumanity in our
Exactly. We're going to slide into inhumanity to man. Man to man, inhumanity is going to get worse and worse until people feel nothing whatsoever. If you combine with what the Islamo-fascists are doing to the human condition, with the drugging of the Western population, which numbs their feelings, people's feelings, they feel nothing or next to nothing, we're very close to experimenting on human beings and saying, oh, who cares? It's only, a human being.